Hey guys, guess what? It's Angel. You're watching my latest video, and the video today is a second video in a interview that I did with a friend of mine named Megan, and this video is dealing with her journey, I guess, in her dealing with her diagnosis of bipolar. Hers, I believe, is bipolar with rapid cycling. I don't know the exact wording with that, but she's going to address that in her video. It was really informative and fun to sit down with her and talk about her experience and how she deals with her illness in her everyday life and the things that she does to keep herself as healthy as possible. So anyway, I hope that this video helps someone who is dealing with mental illness or struggling. I hope that it's informative, and I hope that that you enjoy it. So anyway, with that, we're going to go right into the video. Also, really quick, this is a video in a series of videos that I've been doing on my channel dealing with mental health. If you're new to my channel, or if you haven't been following these videos and you are interested, I will put links below to each one of the videos, and like I said, if you're interested, you can go down there and click on the link and watch the different videos. Also, Megan mentions a website that really helped her when she was first diagnosed and was very informative for her, and I will put a link below to that particular website as well. So with that, we're going to go into the video, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so we're here again today talking with Megan about her bipolar journey. We're going to start off with a bit of a disclaimer, and then we are going to go into talking about the different subjects that she wants to address that weren't addressed in the last video. So,
thanks,
okay.
Angel.
Okay.
Thanks. My disclaimer is I just want to make sure that I say that I am not an expert on anything but my own experience, and that's all I'm talking about. And we can't compare, we can't, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what will work for them, because this is just what's worked for me, and that's all.
Okay.
That's my disclaimer.
Very good.
And my diagnosis is ultra rapid cycling type 2 bipolar with mixed features. So, and I want to talk a little bit about how that looks in my life right now. So even though I found mood stabilizers and medication that's helping, it's still really severe and disabling. And I started on the mood stabilizers last spring, which I talked about before, and then last fall had my fall crash, and this past spring had my spring explosion. So this is even being on mood stabilizers and feeling better than I ever have in the past. I still can't watch my son. I still can't work. I still can't help my sister who just had a new baby. It still really limits me. And I have worked really hard to try and manage it and get through it. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is what it looks like for me now and what I've done to work on it.
And you mentioned your diagnosis being ultra rapid cycling mixed state. Did you want to address any of that before we get into your spring and fall crashes?
Sure.
Okay. Is that okay, or am I skipping ahead and what you want to talk about?
No, this will make sense.
Okay.
So the mixed features part, most people think of bipolar with a high and a low. That's the bipolar, you go between happy and sad and back again, and that's not what bipolar is, of course. But there is some truth to it in that people with bipolar have depressive episodes and manic episodes or hypomanic episodes. And there's also a mixed state which has both. You can have symptoms of both. It doesn't immediately make sense, you wouldn't think that's possible, but one example is when you're so depressed, but you can't stop the thoughts from going. So then it's not just sitting and not caring and not thinking. It's, I'm so worthless, my family would be better off without me. I need to do something about this. Look, I'm not cleaning that. I'm a terrible person. Nobody wants me around. Where the thoughts just keep going. Mm-hmm. And that's oversimplifies it, but that's one
So that's a part of your bipolar 2
That-
diagnosis.
Yes, the mixed features is part of my diagnosis, and I have that all the time. I spend almost all of my symptomatic time with both, some elements of both, of the manic side and the depressive side. So that's why it seemed like I had anxiety and depression, because I was always having depressive symptoms and anxious symptoms in different amounts. Some more of this, some more of that sometimes. But this even showed in my episodes, my 2 episodes this last year, the big ones. The fall one is a depressive episode that has more of the mood symptoms, more apathy, more depression, no energy, and the spring explosion is what I call it, because that's what it was like. It had the hypomanic elements of too much cycling, too rapid. So my rapid cycling really shows up, especially showed up in my spring explosion, where I could go in the morning, I was laying on my floor crying for 2 hours, and then in the afternoon I'm out running errands and laughing with my son, and then I come back home and I'm so anxious I cannot stop moving, physically cannot stop moving. And where it just for weeks it would just cycle so fast. So that's the ultra rapid cycling, and the mixed features are actually really big elements of my bipolar that are pretty constant.
Yeah, I find that too, the mixed, where I wake up in the morning and it's literally just almost like it seems like an impossible task to get out of bed and get my day going. And some days I don't. And then once I do get out of bed and get my day going, then it's like hypomanic energy, where I'm cleaning for hours and hours. And I don't mean just vacuuming. I mean like deep vacuuming, pulling all the furniture out, vacuuming the baseboards, just crazy deep cleaning. And then I crash again.
Yeah,
It's
unbelievable. Honestly, if I hadn't experienced it, I would not believe it was possible.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't believe somebody could go from being so depressed to normal or to supercharged within like 10 hours. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and then the agitation and the anger that comes with the anxious energy. Like I literally, there used to be a cartoon, like it was like Bugs Bunny, like all of the Looney Tunes, and there was one cartoon where like he drank this potion. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like he was happy and nice to be around one second, and then he drank this potion and he turned into this monster, and he was going after people and trying to like harm them. Not that I want to harm people. That's not what I'm saying. Like I've never had those feelings. But like your mood is literally volatile, where you're like, oh, let's go, do all this fun stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to come out of my room,
Yeah. And usually I don't cycle that fast, but it was at its worst this spring because it was a hypomanic episode where the cycling was even worse. Where actually in the fall I was pretty much depressed the whole 3 months.
Yeah.
That part didn't go away. So sometimes, which just goes back to how unique all of our illnesses are, because they're all so different.
Yeah, and they describe it as a roller coaster. And that our illness used to be called manic depression, and now it's been changed to bipolar, because it literally is like from one pole to the other. Like it
ranges.
It does. It ranges.
And can be on both sides at the same time.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so let's see, what else did you want to go into? We talked about your spring crash and your fall crash.
Yeah, how about this part?
Okay.
I made a list one time of the 3 or 4 hardest pieces of my bipolar. The parts I hate the most.
The things you hate most about bipolar.
Yeah, because it is really hard. And I think being in our support group, I've been so relieved to hear other people say, this is such crap. This should not be happening.
And to feel validated. That's the biggest thing for me, is to feel like I am not alone. Other people feel the same way that have this illness. So.
And are still trying. I think that's another thing too, is when I come and I talk to you and our other friend that has bipolar, and we're all saying, man, or one of us has a really bad week, and the others are like, yeah, I've totally been there. And they're still there. And so then I say to myself, okay, they've been here, you know, I'm going to get through this again, like I always have.
Yeah.
And so, but I think the hardest part for me is the unpredictability. I really have a hard time getting so frustrated that I can't even predict tomorrow if I'll be able to hold a conversation with a friend. Or
It's hard to make plans.
you can't make plans.
Right.
When I'm in one of those two crashes, I can't. Like, no plans. Zero.
Right. Yeah.
Because I have no idea if I'll be able to do it.
Exactly. Okay, so what are the 4?
So that's
You
the
said
first
there's
one.
4 things that you've narrowed. I mean, there's way more things than just 4, but the things that you've narrowed it down to.
Right. The first one's the unpredictability, which that's one I felt really validated talking to you and our friend that this is just part of bipolar. It cycles.
Right.
And we can't control it. And that's the second one. I hate that no matter how hard I work, no matter how many skills I use, no matter how many years I'm doing this, I can't control my moods. I still can't. I have spent so long trying to fix this, and it doesn't work. And I hate that.
Right.
And the third one is the rapid cycling, that I wish often that I had a different version of bipolar where I would just have 2 episodes a year instead of having 2 big episodes and then having plenty of little episodes the rest of the year. So I hate that. And it's so hard to have your mind turned against you, where I can't even trust what my brain's telling me. I see my mom standing in the kitchen and I think to myself, oh man, she's ticked at me. And then I have to remind myself, actually, when I'm in a mood state, I can't even read facial expressions correctly. That's how bad it is. I can't trust my own brain. And that's really hard.
Do you feel, so for me, like, a couple things, just to kind of touch on your 4 things there. Paranoia is one of the symptoms of bipolar. And what you just described, would you classify that as a paranoia?
No.
Where you assume that people are thinking one thing about you when the possibility that they're thinking that is not probable?
No, I know you've had more paranoia than I have. I think of it just as anxiety, that I'm worried that they're upset at me. I'm worried that they're frustrated. I'm worried that I bothered them. I'm worried I'm a burden. I think of it more.
So you're more anxious. Yeah, because I know when I say I'm paranoid, I mean, that sounds really scary to people.
Not to me. It doesn't sound scary to me.
When I was, right before my last major breakdown, like I was explaining to my husband that I thought there were cameras in our house, like in every room. So I was so afraid to get undressed, like anywhere, like in my bathroom or in my closet or anything. So I mean, for me, like the paranoia was bad. Like I was never delusional. I never heard voices. I never lost touch with reality. And for me, it literally is a medication thing. Like I was not on the right medication. And so like when you say your brain is working against you, it literally is working against you, or it's just not working. Period. It's just not working. The other thing too is when you talk about that it's unpredictable and that it's hard, like you work really hard every day. It made me think about, I've read articles of people that have bipolar that say they only take their medicine when they have an episode.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know those people.
I don't know either, and I can't fathom.
I don't know the people like that have that type of bipolar. I've never met them. For me, and I've only ever met people with bipolar that have to take medication every single day. And
or
most
5
of
times
them,
a day, like
exactly, multiple times a day. And so when you say it's disabling, it literally is disabling. Like,
yeah, and this is how good we're doing with medication.
Right. Exactly.
If I wasn't on, I'd be dead if I wasn't on medication.
Sure.
But that frustrates me a lot sometimes. Like this this where I say I'm functional, I'm doing better, I am still at my best doing so much worse than all, well, because we can't compare.
Mhm.
That's what I tell myself. We
Right.
can't compare.
Right. So one more question that I have, and then we'll see if there's other things that you want to talk about. And I ask this to people that other people that I know that have bipolar. Do you feel like you could hold a job with your illness?
No way. So since I have these crashes twice a year, I've tried to hold jobs and I can never hold one longer than 7 months.
Right.
Because I completely fall apart. Where I can't get out of bed, or I feel like life is so hopeless, I'm gonna kill myself soon if I don't, you know. I have to do, yeah. Every time I start school again, every time I get another job, the same thing happens. I just totally fall apart.
Yeah.
And I just whoosh,
Yeah.
go right down.
We've talked about this in group, and so I knew what your answer was, but I wanted to ask it for the sake of the video. But we talked about this in group, and I said when I'm hypomanic, and not the agitation, but when I'm hypomanic, when I'm feeling euphoric and on top of the world, and like I'm the smartest person in the world, nobody knows as much as me. I can do anything. When I'm feeling like that, I feel like I would be the best employee. I could take over the company and make it run much more smoother. And then, so I feel like I could get a job and I could just do awesome. And then the next day I hit a crash and I'm like, I would be fired the next day. So the thought of getting a job, it's just,
Disabling is like this very small word.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like that just does not cover it.
Yeah.
That it's really, really hard. Bipolar is so hard, and it's a heavy burden to carry.
And we hide it most of the time.
Yeah,
most of
we
the
do
time.
what we can. We function
People
as well
with
as we can.
people with mental illness hide it because they don't want people to know the secret. That's what I think. I don't want people to know my secret. So when I'm in a bad place, I don't go out so people don't see me.
Right. I worry that when I walk onto the playground, all 7 of the moms out there are going to know I'm in the middle of a depressive episode and can't watch my son and didn't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
So I just stay inside.
Yeah. And my son is 22. So if I'm in a bad episode, I just don't leave the house and people don't see me like that. So when I'm in a good place and they see me, they have no idea that I suffer from an illness.
I've had a lot of people tell me that.
Yeah.
That they would never have guessed, or they can't believe it, or...
Right. Because we work our whole lives to hide it.
And I think we just try and do the best we can with it. I'm not walking around the whole city being like, oh, woe is me, my bipolar is so bad, I can't do anything. I think I just try and function as best I can at whatever point I'm at.
Right.
If I can go to the store today, great, I'll go to the store. So I think it doesn't necessarily advertise itself, since we're just trying to function.
Right.
Which goes into my next
Okay.
thing of what I do to manage bipolar, which is a lot. I work really, 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 really hard at trying to deal with this and cope with this. And I've come up with 4 things I think are the most helpful pieces to my bipolar management routine. The first one's medications. And we already talked about this. And without medications, well, without modern medicine, I've thought about this a lot. When people are like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go back and live in medieval times? And I'm like, I would have been dead like a decade ago. No, that wouldn't work for me. Have fun. I'll see you later.
Or you'd be in a padded cell.
Yes. Yeah, that would be the other option.
Mm-hmm.
So medication, even when I was diagnosed with just depression and anxiety and getting the wrong medication, it was still helping enough that I didn't kill myself. So that's the first. And since learning I have bipolar, that's a totally different game. Where bipolar is a lifelong illness. It's not going to go away, and it's based in the body and chemical makeup, and medications aren't optional.
Right.
At least for me. I can't go off my medication.
Right. It would be like a diabetic saying, I'm not going to take insulin anymore.
Right.
Because I don't want to have diabetes.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be fine.
I'm tired
Blood
of
sugar,
taking medication.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing where it's like, well, if I don't want to take my medication, I guess I don't want to live or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't play around with meds. I take meds every day.
Yeah.
Right now I take them 5 times a day. And that's what I have to do. So, and you have to take yours multiple times a day too. We just have to.
And large doses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take large doses.
Because we have to do what we can do.
Right.
So that's the first one. The second one is therapy. Therapy has been, well, in some ways it's been a mixed bag. I've had a few really bad therapists who've done more damage than help. And right now I'm meeting with a therapist who has done, he's incredible. He gets me, he helps me. I drive across state lines to meet with him once a week because it's that helpful. And that's the second pillar of my treatment, I guess. And I also like that about our group too, that all of us have had enough years of therapy. It's nice to be able to talk to somebody with that same base. I think a lot of people with bipolar end up having a lot of therapy.
It's sad to me when I do come across, because I have other friends that are not in our group that are bipolar. It's sad to me the ones that are not in therapy.
Oh
and
gosh, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it's usually not by choice. It's usually because they can't afford it. Their health care doesn't cover it. And so it scares me actually to know that they're not in therapy.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge, huge key. It plays a key role in helping you manage your disease.
Yeah, it does. And I've thought to myself before, on good days, oh, why am I going to therapy? I don't need to go to therapy. And then I hit a bad day and I'm like, oh, because I can't predict anything about my bipolar. So I have to have therapy scheduled every week for the weeks that it's on a bad day so that then I will have it available. On the good days, great, I can go and talk to him about other stuff, but I need it there in place so when the bad days hit.
Yeah, and I think, like today, I after we make this video, I have an appointment with my therapist. And a lot of times I go in and I think, I have nothing to talk about. Things are great. And I get in there and I'm bawling and I leave and I think, oh my gosh, it's like a weight lifted. I can't believe I had all that to talk about, you know? And so, yeah.
That's what I did yesterday. Basically,
Right.
halfway through the session, my therapist is talking me down from a very dark place. I'm like, oh, that's right. I've been feeling like that this week and I just didn't...
It's like because you live with it every day.
I feel like I kind of have to stuff
And
it
you
down as much as I
exactly,
can.
yeah.
And then when I
you
get
don't,
there,
and you just like unload. Because you do, really, we feel like a burden every day.
yeah,
And I feel like if I unloaded everything that I'm feeling every day on my loved ones, I can't
handle
imagine them carrying that. Like,
No.
I would rather carry it because I'm used to it than give it to them. I feel like they already deal with enough with me.
I totally agree with you, Angel.
Which is sad. I realize that's sad, but I think a lot of us feel that way.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even want to tell my husband when I left therapy. I wrote down all the things my therapist said. I was reading them to myself as I drove home, and I didn't even plan to tell my husband, oh, I was this close to thinking about killing myself this morning. I just wanted to let it go, let him keep living his life. You feel like a real burden on people. Okay, the third thing in what I think are my 4 pillars of support is probably the people that I have. So my parents are amazing, and they knew nothing about mental illness before I started having this. And after I was hospitalized and they realized, holy cow, this is what's been going on, they went and started going to classes, they talked to people, they asked me questions, they did everything they could, and they are rocks in my life. They're so stable and steady, and their love does not change. And my husband is the same way. We met in the psych ward, which
That's interesting.
yes, it's
There
quite
is
a
a
story.
movie like that.
And I haven't watched it.
I haven't either. I can't remember the name. It's like
Is it
Touched
Silver
by
Linings?
Fire.
Oh, Touched by Fire.
Something like that.
I can't remember.
I've been
Because I
meaning to
haven't
watch it. I just haven't yet. But yeah, it's similar. So you met in the psych ward. How
Yeah.
was that?
I don't ever recommend it to anyone because I think it can go really badly. But for us, we feel like it was a miracle. It was the only way we would have met. We were living very different lifestyles. He was drinking. He came into detox at the psych ward, and I was suicidal, so I'd been there for a couple weeks already and couldn't get out of that because I was doing so badly. So we met, and he kind of saw me at my worst. And so now I always know, you know, a lot of people worry like, well, my spouse didn't sign up for this and maybe he'll want to leave me after he sees I've got this depression. And thankfully I've never had to worry about that because he already knew.
Yeah.
And I'm doing better now than I was when we met. So that's been nice. And because he has so much background in mental health, he is so empathetic. And a lot of wives also say, my husband just tells me to get over this and start watching the kids and be normal. And my husband has never said that. He's always been, I love you, do whatever you have to do to be happy. I will support you in everything.
Because he's felt the effects of depression himself.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
So he understands.
That's a big deal.
And that kind of is connected to how we met.
Right.
Because he was really depressed when we met too, and we kind of gave each other a reason to live.
Yeah.
So that's, my siblings are amazingly supportive. I am surrounded by, my whole life, my life is filled with the most amazing people I've ever met.
You're truly blessed in that area because there's so many people that their families and friends sort of abandon them because they don't really know how to relate. They don't know how to take care. They feel like it's too big of a, I don't know, too big of a problem, or they get intimidated or scared. I really don't know, but they sort of just walk away from it.
Which I can imagine being in their position and being overwhelmed by someone else with mental illness. But being the person with mental illness, I mean, we know that does not help. Abandoning somebody does not help them get better. And I am so blessed to have all the people.
Absolutely.
All the people in my life who are so supportive. And without them, there's no way, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am. And so because of my people, I can do my fourth thing, which is try and work on myself because I have so much. My therapist says I work harder than any of his other patients, which I do work really hard.
You do.
And I have done that for a long time. So it started, anyway, so when I first had my diagnoses of depression and anxiety, everybody talked to me like, well, if you just work on this, it'll fix it. You know, do some therapy and you won't be depressed anymore. Or do some deep breathing and you won't feel anxious anymore. Or talk this out. Or journal and then it'll go away. And everybody was saying, do this, do that, including the therapists and the psychiatrists.
That's interesting.
Yes, it didn't, well, it wasn't enough. So, you know, my well-meaning relative would tell me, have you tried this vitamin? And someone else would say, this worked for my friend's dog, and I'm sure it'll fix your depression. And yeah.
Or I read this book.
You've heard a ton of, I
read this book, and what I read, or they give you, I've had someone in my past give me a book, and while they're well-meaning,
yes,
it can be frustrating for the person suffering.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, you know, unvalidated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, absolutely. I had, books like that, just so out of love. People saying out of love, that's why they're saying, this worked for my cousin's dog, and I heard maybe this one theory, and I'm sure it works for a lot of people, but it is invalidating when your illness is so severe that none of that's going to help.
Well, and it's like, okay, giving a person with diabetes a book and saying, if you read this and you try these things, your diabetes is going to go away and you won't need your insulin.
It'll go away. You're going to address the real root causes if you're...
you wouldn't do that with someone else that suffered from a disease. You just wouldn't.
No, and it's really... I know people mean well, and I think the reason they do that is because it does help some people. Some people are having a rough time. If they increase their use of this one essential oil, then it pulls them out of it. Or
don't get me started on essential oils. Yeah.
That's my toddler talking.
I have green new one.
Hey bud, you going with Dad?
Ben, we gotta go. Come.
Oh, thank you.
He wants to help on the video.
Yes, he does.
He's very, very cute. Very cute. I've heard you talk about him many times, and now to meet him and see him, super cute little boy.
Thanks. So I think he's pretty cute. So yeah, so this really is, this is actually, I wasn't even going to go into that, but this is a big issue of people trying to help, and bipolar. So when I had depression and anxiety, I kept telling myself, look, they say this is going to fix me. They say this worked for this person. This worked for them. It should work for me. Oh, I must just not be doing it right. Oh, I must just be doing the wrong thing. I need to fix this. And then finally, when I got the bipolar, it was like, I don't have to fix this. I can't fix this. Like, this is not something I can fix.
Right. Like a hamster spinning in his wheel. Like you're spinning, but you're not getting anywhere. And then you find out why, and you go, aha, this is why I wasn't getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So now I know. Oh, it's bipolar, and it's kind of a relief to be like, okay, this is outside of my control. This has always been outside of my control. So, like, when it comes down to it, it's the chemicals that decide how I'm feeling. So what I can do is, well, meds and therapy and do my skills. So my therapist and I have this, we call it my 6 things, my 6 daily things. It was during last fall, during my really bad depressive episode. And we sat down, and it had just started, and it was bad. And I was like, what am I, like, I could barely, what am I supposed to do? I can't even move. And he said, okay, well, let's make a plan. And I said, great, because I love plans.
Mm-hmm.
I need a plan to survive. So we made a list of the 6 things that seemed like the most basic needs of mine to stay well. So these are the 6. The first one is take my meds as prescribed. The second one is read an enjoyable book, because even when I am the most depressed, sometimes I can still find joy in reading when nothing else brings me positive emotion. Reading can do it. So that one's on the list. Also, the third one is spiritual connection. I'm very religious, and so I try to read or listen to scripture and pray every day. Even though when I'm depressed, I can't feel anything coming back. That's the spirituality.
At least you're
and depression.
trying.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother subject.
Right.
But I try. Yes, exactly. The fourth one is social connection, which has to be with a lady that's not my husband. Has to be with a lady where I can talk about something that's actually real. And when I'm really depressed, that ends up, sometimes it's a text. That's all I can do. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Or one time during that crash, I came in and I said, I'm having a really hard time with this one. And my therapist said, well, like, what about a phone call? I'm like, no, I don't think I can do a phone call.
Yeah.
And he said, what about an email? And I said, well, like, maybe half the days I could do a short email.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, that's good, do that. And from where I am now,
Yeah.
it's like, how can that, again, it's like almost unbelievable. How can that be possible? How can it be hard to write a short email?
There's this video, and I'll link it below in the description box. It's by a guy named Andrew Solomon, and I love the video. I think it's very informative as far as depression. But he talks about how before his depression hit, he would come home and he would see that his answering machine was blinking, and he would be excited because he would think, oh, my friends want to, have me go and like do some fun things. Once his depression hit, he would come home and he would see that answering machine button blinking, and he would listen to the messages, and he would say to himself, oh, that's an awful lot of people to call back. And so he just wouldn't, because the energy that it would take him, he just didn't have.
Yeah.
And in the video, he says the opposite of depression is vitality. And when he said that, it just resonated with me, because for me, that is exactly what it is. When I'm depressed, I have no vitality. I have 0. So.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. You're right.
Yeah. So
that's the fourth one. And then the fifth one is to leave the house. During the summer, it's usually to get some green time in, to walk on the grass. So that really helps me kind of reset. And then during the winter, it's just to leave the house, whether it's the playground right outside or an errand or whatever. And then the last one is physical activity. And that one, my goal is 15 minutes. So this is how I do it. I read in a book called Why Am I Still Depressed? It's written, this is the book of the guy who wrote the website that I have talked about. So his book, he has a chapter on exercise, and he quotes a different bipolar dude, researcher, leader, who said something like this. He tells his patients, put on your shoes, open the door, walk 7.5 minutes in one direction, any direction, turn around and walk home. Every day, that's it. And when I tell myself that, I can get myself to do that almost every day, even when I'm so depressed. If I just tell myself 7.5 minutes out, 7.5 minutes back, that's it, then I can usually get myself to do that. So we've done this. We've kind of gone down to the very, very basic things, so that on the really bad days, if I do nothing else, if I do these 6 things, it will be enough.
Right. That's
So
good.
that's a big part of my wellness routine. But
And that's a big thing that's like one of the main tools that they teach you in the hospital is structure your day, structure your week, because if you don't, once you get into one of those episodes, you're not thinking straight enough
Right.
to structure it yourself. So if you have those things written down, you can go to your calendar. You can
Right.
you can look at those things, and it gives you those tools to know how to go through your day and hopefully, get through that episode until that mood lifts. Because eventually
Yeah.
the mood is going to lift, and you
especially
have
with bipolar,
right.
which I tell myself all the time. Bipolar by nature is cyclical. It will change. It will change. It will always change. That's part of the problem, is that it's always changing.
Right.
But when you're doing really badly, it will still change.
Right. Even though you think you're never going to get out of that hole, that darkness.
Yep.
But it will eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what bipolar does. So, and on that, so I have a plan that I've written ahead of time. I call it my master plan, because it's a master plan. So I have on the front a mood scale, because I rate my mood from 0 to 10. I keep really detailed mood journals and charts to try and track stuff. I used to try and find patterns, and then after a year of that, the only pattern I found was 0 patterns. So that's when I learned, oh, I really don't have any control over this. Okay. So now I rate my mood on this chart, and I divide it into categories of how well I am. So I have, like when I'm just mildly low, or moderately low, or severely low, on different levels I have different little plans. So it says, when I'm feeling like this is what I need. I need help from someone else, or I need help with my son, and these are skills to use. Do this distress tolerance skill. Read this talk written by a religious leader. Follow this plan. Go find an enjoyable activity. I have like a plan for all these things, because that I made while I was well. Because you can't think clearly when you're
Right. You have to have a reference to go to.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a big plan, and by now a lot of this skill use, like checking my facts, I check my facts all the time, all day. It's a reflex. I think a lot of my skill use to try and cope is just a reflex.
Right.
When I'm super upset, like I can't think, I do what DBT calls distress tolerance. So I go find something to do that will lower the negative emotion enough that I can actually do something about the negative emotion. So if I'm having a panic attack, I need to find a way to reduce the panic enough so that it's just outrageous fear. So then I can think, okay, what can I do now? Oh, I can problem solve. Oh, I can do this other thing. I can use this other skill.
One of the things that I found really, really helpful, and I wish I had known this 16 years ago when my panic attacks started,
Yeah.
is when an attack hits, which I take medication to keep the attacks away, but they're still going to hit. When an attack hits, immediately what I do is I get up and I start moving, because my heart rate is elevated. I think I'm going to drop dead. That's my biggest fear. So when a panic attack starts, I read that you should do this, and it actually helps. It works. You're supposed to look and identify 5 things in the room. So when it starts, I'll look and I'll say, picture on the wall, stove, door, rug, and I'll identify 5 things and I'll keep doing that, like the same 5 things for the entire attack. And it really, really does sort of focus your mind on other things, and it helps to, I guess, make the attack less severe. And I've started doing that. It's very, very helpful, because oftentimes with me, I'll have 3 panic attacks in a row. And so with this, it helps to reduce those.
And that's an easy thing to think of right away.
Mm-hmm.
Panic attack, identify things.
Right.
Where
Look for
it's-
5 things.
Yeah, and it's become a reflex for you.
Right.
Where you just do it.
Yeah.
Which after this many years of practice, thank goodness. Like,
Yeah. Very, very helpful. So.
Yeah, I have a different, like when my go-to. So when I'm agitated, I often ask my husband to help me slow down. And when I'm apathetic and just sitting around, I go to get food. And when I'm depressed, I am supposed to go do something that usually brings me positive emotion, even if I can't feel any. And when I'm worried, I check my worries against the facts that I've talked to other people about. Like, is this actually realistic? And I can do that in my head. And all these things are just reflexes now. I identify the feeling, and then I do what I'm used to doing for it. So, in bipolar, it takes constant maintenance.
It does.
Like, all day, every day. Having to do skills, having to watch out for how you're feeling, having to monitor for triggers, and it is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's also true that there are things we can do. about
Right.
it.
You can, obviously, you can live with it. People do. We are living with it.
Yeah.
But, it is, people, when, they say people lose their, what's the term that I've heard lately? That they've lost their struggle with mental illness
Oh, I
is the
haven't heard
term. You haven't? When people turn to the worst when they take their life. I've heard now
Oh.
people have said they've lost their struggle with mental illness.
Yeah. Okay.
So you
Interesting.
can live with, definitely you can live with it. You can survive from it, and a lot of people are survivors. But it's like any disease, there is a mortality rate that is there.
Yeah.
So you work really hard so that doesn't happen to you.
Right.
And the people that that suffer from it, you help them to work really hard. So that's why support groups are really, really important.
Yeah. Our support group. I can't say it enough. Really, how many times have I already mentioned it?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's so nice because it's both sides. I feel like at that group, it's how I'm feeling. How hard this is. How painful this is, and look, I see you working on things, and you're still alive, and you're still going.
Right. So you help each other.
Yeah.
It's a great resource.
Yeah, it is. And I'm so lucky to have so many good people on my life.
Yeah,
in my life.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
being one of
you.
them.
Yeah, I it's been a blessing getting to know you, so awesome.
you.
And I thank you so much for being willing to sit down and talk about this and get it on film, and to share your story with people. It's important.
It's pretty nerve-wracking, but talking in our support group has
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
so helpful for me. I think I felt like I needed to talk more about it.
good. So anything else you want to address in this video?
Just to say to everybody else with bipolar, man, we get it.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
get it.
absolutely.
And we can do it. We can keep going. And we've gotten through every day up until now. We'll keep getting through it just like we've always gotten through it.
Yeah, every day's a new day, and you use your tools.
Yep,
And
use your tools.
and
That's what I
you
do.
reach out to people when you are feeling low and you
Mhm.
feeling like you need help and support, and and you
And
just
when you can't do it anymore, you go to the psych ward, and then they help you.
Right, you make sure you keep yourself safe. So, okay, well, again, thanks for doing this video, and I hope this helps other people. I hope that that it's a great resource. And I hope this video finds you well. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. And until we talk again, bye.
Bye.